Good morning, and welcome to Redeemer Lutheran Church. I'm Pastor Gary Lodeholt. This week we are looking at the antitheses you find in the Sermon on the Mount in Matthew 5. The antitheses are a series of statements Jesus makes that begin, "You have heard that it was said," and then he concludes with, "But I say to you." And what Jesus does is to extend the laws of Moses like the Ten Commandments and invites us to look and to understand them and to live them through the lens of love for our neighbor. That's a tall order, because usually we look for loopholes and how far we can push them and get away with something. Jesus calls us to be better. Today we come to the one about adultery and divorce. Jesus said, "You have heard that it was said, 'You shall not commit adultery.' But I say to you that everyone who looks at a woman with lust has already committed adultery with her in his heart. If your right eye causes you to sin, tear it out and throw it away. It is better for you to lose one of your members than for your whole body to be thrown into hell. And if your right hand causes you to sin, cut it off and throw it away. It is better for you to lose one of your members than for your whole body to go into hell. It is also said, 'Whoever divorces his wife, let him give her a certificate of divorce.' But I say to you that anyone who divorces his wife, except on the grounds of unchastity, causes her to commit adultery. And whoever marries a divorced woman commits adultery." Perhaps the best way to understand this statement is for us to look first at the Bible's view of sex. First, God created sexuality before he created marriage. In Genesis 1, we were made male and female, and then marriage shows up in chapter 2. So the Bible understands sex as a created gift of God. Secondly, the Bible is realistic that sex is hard to govern. Since sex expresses the whole self, it is a gift from God that is filled with human ambiguities, frailties, and failings. So we can bless one another with rightly used sexual relationships, or we can use sex to reject, dominate, use, and abuse others. Thirdly, sex is understood as a means of covenant love between two people, and God's gift is most fully meaningful and used as God intended within that covenant. That means even more, that the covenant of marriage mirrors or is like the covenant we have with God. And finally, the Bible understands adultery as a violation of that covenant. It seeks to use others. It's not appropriate love of our neighbor. One's spouse is violated, and the covenant with God is violated. So Jesus isn't attacking sexual desire here, but rather that which seeks to see one's neighbor as only a sexual object. That's not how we're supposed to view or value our neighbor. The second part of this statement, the part about divorce, has a similar theme. Moses allowed for divorce, but in the years since, people had taken it to the extreme to say that a man could divorce a woman for any displeasing thing. A silly example. Your wife could burn the toast and you could divorce her for that. Jesus had a higher view of marriage than that. And more importantly, he had a higher view of women. You see, in those days, a man could divorce a woman, but women didn't have the right to divorce men. Women were seen as objects, and Jesus says instead that women have value as persons. She is not to be put aside lightly, and our covenants of marriage reflect our covenant with God. Now, certainly we live in a broken world, and there are times when divorce may be needed for any number of good reasons. But that's a reflection of our brokenness for which we seek forgiveness and understanding. Jesus has a high view of marriage and affirms that we are all valuable parts of God's creation. All our relationships, and in particular our marriages, are meant to reflect that. Over the years, in many premarital counseling sessions, I've had people tell me they were wanting a 50-50 relationship with their partner. I usually respond that marriage isn't a 50-50 thing, but a 100-100 thing. You give your whole self to the other and honor and value the other. A marriage isn't about what you get, I tell them. A marriage is about what you give. Thanks for watching, and remember to let this day belong to God.